Jabba the Hutt died as the sleazy old boss of a criminal empire that was already in decline. Now, one word in that sentence probably caused a bit more of a stir than the rest. Not that Jabba's sleazy, that's been a defining character trait of his since his very first time really appearing on screen in The Return of the Jedi. Probably no one's that upset that I called him old. Now, he's not so old that all of the other Hutts around him are like, yeah, let him ramble on about a Chancellor who's been dead for 200 years. He's old, he's gonna be forgetful. But he's still in his 6th century by the time of the Empire. But calling the Hutt Crime Syndicate, which has been at the forefront of the galaxy far, far away's criminal underworld for thousands of years, in decline, that's probably gonna turn a few heads, and that's what I'm going to try to prove in this video. Jabba the Hutt has never been opposed to going against the wishes and greater needs of the Hutt Cartel in order to advance his own personal agenda. 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace, the sentient dark side of the Force-wielding carnivorous plants called the Drengir threatened the Outer Rim. They began to encroach on Hutt space, consuming all meat-based life in their way, hungrily. The Hutts sought an alliance with the Jedi to combat them. It was so dangerous for the Hutts, as the Drengir had even made their way to the Hutts' homeworld of Nal Hutta. Yet, when the Jedi arrived on Nal Hutta to negotiate with the Hutts and offer aid, Jabba the Hutt orchestrated a plot against them all. He had his men hijack the vessel that the Jedi arrived in, and made it open fire on the leader of the Hutts at the time, Qi'ra the Hutt, to force a three-way conflict between the Jedi, the Hutt Cartel, and the Drengir. With all of his enemies weakened, Jabba planned to then seize power on the Hutt homeworld. His plot was discovered and foiled, though obviously this did not stop his eventual rise to prominence within the underworld and the Hutt Cartel.
Begun. The Clone War has.
As the Clone Wars erupt across the galaxy, Count Dooku and Asajj Ventress kidnap Jabba the Hutt's son, Rotta, in a ploy to frame the Jedi. The plan fails when Anakin Skywalker and his new apprentice, Ahsoka Tano, rescue the baby Rotta.
He's a lot younger than I thought he'd be.
Oh, he's so cute.
Just wait until you see what he'll grow into.
And return him to Jabba's palace on Tatooine. Jabba is so joyful at the return of his Punky Muffin, Jabba's words, that he agrees to allow the Republic to use the Hutts' hyperspace lanes in their war efforts. That Jabba alone is able to make this decision for the entire Hutt Cartel just shows how much influence he has gained among them. And Jabba learning that it was his uncle, Ziro the Hutt, who helped Dooku kidnap his son, must have only deepened Jabba's distrust of other Hutts seizing his influence on the Hutt Cartel. And when Darth Maul begins his first takeover of the criminal underworld under his Shadow Collective, Jabba surrenders to him not when he and his forces attack the capital of Nal Hutta.
So the only thing that you can tell me is that I will find Jabba at Jabba's palace.
But only when Maul arrives at Jabba's palace to threaten him personally. Clearly, he still values his own preservation above that of the Hutt Council.
The Republic will be reorganized into the first Galactic Empire!
In the early days of the Galactic Empire, legendary pirate queen Maz Kanata, who has been a powerful underworld figure for 1,000 years herself.
Through the ages, I've seen evil take many forms. The Sith, the Empire.
Was the first to note the beginnings of the decline of the Hutts. She notes that at this time, again the beginning of the Galactic Empire, that the Hutts, even though they have stood since antiquity, have begun to lose ground and grown complacent, losing influence to crime syndicates like the Pykes, who we know have recently been taken over by Darth Maul, and Sun Tol Pride, who have been growing at the Hutts' expense. Now, in the grand scheme of things, the Hutts were probably not at all concerned about a slight period of decline. As Jabba says in a meeting of the Grand Hutt Council, of which he was the most powerful member at this time, the Hutts can afford to take the long view. They have been around for a lot longer than anyone alive can remember. A slight dip in influence now is really of no consequence to them in the grand scheme of things. things. But this philosophy does not sit well with the youngest member of the Hutt Council, Boku the Hutt. This is his time to establish himself, and Jabba's lax view grates on his nerves. But Jabba, honestly, has never really cared too much about the opinion of the Hutt Council.
Rebellions are built on hope.
After the destruction of the Death Star, Emperor Palpatine sends Darth Vader personally to negotiate with Jabba to even further solidify the bonds that have grown between the Hutts and the Empire after the destruction of a huge project like the Death Star, and while they're working on building the second one, they need some more supplies, so Darth Vader goes and solidifies deals between the Hutts and the Empire.
I am altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further.
He does this directly with Jabba, not going to Nal Hutta. He knows where the true power lies. Everybody at this point knows where the true power lies. It's with Jabba. It's not with the rest of the Hutt Council. And there's a huge lack of trust, honestly, between Jabba and the rest of the Hutt Council because, well, he's never really cared too much about their opinion to begin with. This lack of trust is shown at some point before the Empire Strikes Back, when Jabba hires Boba Fett and Diva Lompop to kill an arms dealer named Jarm Brock, who was disrupting Jabba's operations in the Tatooine settlement of Mos Entha. Jabba believed that Jarm was under the employ of other members of the Hutt Council, yet still orders his death as he sees this as the Hutt Council overstepping into his territory. In truth, Jarm was actually working for the criminal organization Crimson Dawn, who wanted to sow further division between Jabba and the rest of the Hutt Council. Diva Lompop, who Jabba hired, did learn this, but chose not to inform Jabba of this scheme as she doesn't really like the guy.
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
The Empire will compensate you if he dies. Put him in. He's all yours, bounty hunter.
After the events of The Empire Strikes Back, the Hutt Council is divided further when Boku the Hutt is visited by Ochi of Bestoon to recruit him into the service of Darth Vader. Though Boku is hesitant, Vader intimidates him into telling them how Boba Fett lost Han Solo's carbonite block before being able to reach and deliver it to Jabba. So Jabba put a bounty on Boba Fett's head. Vader decides that he wants to get Solo so that way he can use Solo's carbonite slab to lure out Luke into another confrontation.
Your destiny lies with me, Skywalker.
After Jabba and the rest of the Hutt Cartel receive an invitation from Crimson Dawn to attend an auction of Han Solo's carbonite slab, Vader instructs Boku to bid against Jabba, knowing that he'll lose, but this is all part of Darth Vader's plan. Jabba and Boku bicker a bit before Qi'ra starts the bidding. Jabba quickly outbids the Empire and Boku when he tries to bid against Jabba. Jabba's ready to leave with his prize of Han Solo until Darth Vader arrives. Vader threatens that strong relationship between the Hutts and the Empire, which the Hutts have now grown financially reliant on, and also it means that it keeps the Empire off of their backs for a lot of their other criminal dealings. So Jabba acquiesces and gives Solo to Vader as a gift. But Boku, on the other hand, is absolutely outraged at Jabba supposedly showing weakness in front of the whole criminal underworld who were gathered at this auction. Jabba is unconcerned about this and leaves. Boku convinces the rest of the Hutt Council that they should steal Solo from the Empire to establish their dominance. The Empire, believe it or not, doesn't take kindly to this, and a battle ensues. The Hutt Council wants to stop this before it goes too far, but Boku, under orders from his secret allies in Crimson Dawn, orders the Hutt fleet to press the attack. Emperor Palpatine himself orders Vader to personally cow the Hutts back into submission. As the Hutt Council pleads with Boku to end this, Darth Vader arrives. Vader kills the Hutt Council, including Boku. And with that, only Jabba is left in control of the entire Hutt Syndicate. All of their operations across the whole galaxy now solely ride on his leadership. After Boba Fett returns Han Solo to him, he calls off the bounty on Fett. Even though there was this snafu with Boku and the Hutts and the Empire fighting, Jabba believes that the Empire will continue to work with the Hutts because, like him, Emperor Palpatine takes the long view. The rest of the criminal underworld, on the other hand, does not share Jabba's opinion. And when Qi'ra and the rest of Crimson Dawn spread the rumor that the Empire is looking for their next partner in the criminal underworld, a crime syndicate war breaks out to eliminate the competition. As some protection against rival syndicates, Jabba pays Boba Fett to stick around his palace for a while. Fellow bounty hunter Dengar confides in him that he does not like the direction that things are heading. Jabba's previously undisputed control over Tatooine begins to slip now that he has to split focus between managing his territory and running the entire Hutt syndicate by himself.
Kavastufpo no lia. Tatooine. No bata kuna bata. Tajaba.
You aren't taking anything from these people.
In the small desert town of Wayfar, Hutt influence is able to be openly and violently pushed back by a lone sheriff, Sheriff Quint, with the occasional and minor assistance of outlaw K-Vess.
Those guys really hate you, huh?
You get used to it.
Just over a decade earlier, when we saw a lone individual in the desert violently oppose the will of the Hutts, Jabba hired a feared bounty hunter to track down this individual and have him be brought to the palace as an example to what happens when you defy the Hutts. Now, on the other hand, Sheriff Quint is able to openly oppose the Hutts and live freely. She even runs a high-stakes sabacc table that is influential enough among the high rollers of the galaxy that news of upsets there make their way all the way across the Outer Rim, such as to information broker Donka on Toshara and renowned scoundrel Lando Calrissian.
Donka left you a message. She heard about your recent sabacc winnings.
Huh. How does she find out?
Well, she's very impressed.
You'd think that Jabba wouldn't let someone with influence like that slide, but yet he does. Indeed, his control over Tatooine is slipping so much that relatively small external players, the Ashiga clan from Kijimi and the newly formed Zarek Besh, are both able to establish a presence in Mos Eisley.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
The hive of scum and villainy that houses a secondary throne room for Jabba himself. And both separately plot to steal a very important weapon shipment from Jabba. Ultimately, the fate of whether those weapons make it back to Jabba or are sold off-world to the Ashiga is up to newcomer K-Vess. Zarek Besh even feels bold enough to suggest to Jabba's majordomo, Bib Fortuna, that he could betray the Hutt and take over his criminal empire. It's an idea that Fortuna increasingly considers. The Pykes use this opportunity to begin muscling in on Hutt territory on Tatooine, Jabba's seat of power. Tensions boil over into a space battle over the planet. Bib Fortuna eventually hires K-Vess of the Trailblazer to protect a Hutt convoy heading to Toshara. The Pykes attack it and even offer to pay K triple to betray the Hutts and give the contents to them.
Tell Bib Fortuna if Jabba refuses to deal with us, this won't be the last convoy he loses.
Now, I'm not at all trying to imply that Jabba didn't do anything in response to the Hutts losing influence across the galaxy. In response to the Pykes' attack on the shipment to Toshara, Jabba calls in a debt with assassin droid ND5 and makes him get dirt on the Imperial Governor of Toshara, so that way he would be forced to work with the Hutts instead of the Pykes, which is what he had previously been doing. But ultimately, Jabba is just one Hutt, and could not control everything all at once. This is why at this time we see the Hutts suddenly take an interest in the world of Akiva. Akiva, during the Clone Wars, was the site of a massive droid factory.
I am not broken.
And has ever since the Clone Wars been the site of droids continuing to be built, with those factories still being present on the planet. The Hutts want to take over the control of these droids in the underworld and just in legitimate business trades. They want to have this influence, but they don't have the manpower to do what they probably normally would do, which is send a Hutt to the planet and have the Hutts just muscle in and take everything over. Instead, they make a deal with the already influential gangster on the planet, Surat Nuat.
Deal.
And broker a deep alliance between Surat and the Hutts. We see that the Hutts work to get shipments of droids from Akiva over to Tatooine, perhaps to reinforce Jabba's own forces there and reestablish his dominance over his seat of power. But even there, we see that pirates attack those shipments and it's up to Kves whether she wants to recover the droids for the Hutts or for another criminal syndicate.
Good. New acquisitions.
Luck is once again not on Jabba's side, as not long after he begins bringing all these new droids to Tatooine, the galaxy comes under attack by the Scourge, a hyper-intelligent droid that seeks to assimilate all droids in the galaxy to become part of its collective.
You two will be assimilated.
And that is indeed what they managed to do in Jabba's palace, spreading to all of the droids, fighting with the palace guards, and leading to the palace being overrun while Jabba is enjoying an outing across the Dune Sea on his barge. When he hears of what happens to the droids back in his palace, he assumes that it's a targeted attack by one of his criminal rivals, not knowing that there is a threat on the galactic scale. He has his guards attack the droids to reclaim the palace. The Scourge is destroyed at its source, releasing all of the droids that it had assimilated under its influence.
Assimilate this.
Just in time for Jabba to keep some of his palace droids, such as the torture droid EV-99, but many more were destroyed throughout this conflict. And the palace itself is visibly damaged. Rising smoke represents the most visible duress to the Hutt's seat of power, perhaps ever. Soon after, an assassination attempt on Jabba comes from within the inner circle of his palace. The plot includes his bookkeeper, one of his tax collectors, and his translator droid, and the attempt on his life misses by only inches. Akrev, who serves as a guard in Jabba's palace and a drummer for Max Rebo, goes to his clan, which has served Jabba the Hutt for generations. He believes that Deathhawks are circling over Jabba and wonders if his clan would be better off without the Hutts dictating their fate. That sense of impending doom for the Hutts seems to spread its way across Jabba's palace. Jabba, in an attempt to stave off those proverbial Deathhawks, unveils his latest asset to the underworld, the Mega Droid. With Durasteel plating, which is typically only used on starships, and weaponry designed to be a match for the Jedi during the Clone Wars, Jabba intends for the fear of this droid to resecure his place at the top of the underworld. He broadcasts a fight between it and the cyborg bounty hunter Valance for rivals, including the Pykes, to witness firsthand. Instead, they watch it be destroyed by Valance, who was secretly aided by Boba Fett to ensure that he remains Jabba's top asset. With the Mega Droid out of the way, the path is clear for Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker to begin their rescue of Han Solo, still frozen in carbonite and on display in Jabba's palace. Jabba even laughs off the whole thermal detonator threat that Leia in disguise uses against him to get a higher price for her fake sale of Chewbacca to him. But I don't know if he'll be laughing for very long.
I am Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight and friend to Captain Solo.
He's no Jedi.
Luke Skywalker's message of a Jedi Knight potentially coming to blows with Jabba inspires the dancer Ula to refuse Jabba's nightly sexual assault. This, unfortunately, leads to her being fed to the Rancor, with Bib Fortuna forcing the other palace women to watch as a show of what happens to those who defy the Hutt. But instead, this served only to build up a rage within them. Jess, a musician and waitress at the palace, noted that Jabba was wary after Ula's rebellion. Everyone was made to sleep in the throne room that night within plain sight. Even Max Rebo, the musician, attempts to poison Jabba's container of Klaatuine patty frogs that he so enjoys eating. Unfortunately for Max, he tried at the exact moment that Jabba had caught Leia freeing Han Solo from carbonite.
It's not my fault.
But his end was drawing nearer and nearer. Luke Skywalker arrives and kills his Rancor, infuriating Jabba. Singer-sized Snoodles had grown accustomed to hearing the Rancor's mournful cries. Now it was dead due to what she believed was Jabba's short-sightedness. Jedi. She notes that silence didn't suit the court of the Hutt Council. She has worked with the Hutts for many decades, and while Jabba's palace was once a place of beauty, now it is covered with dust. She declines to go witness the execution of Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and their friends, and instead reflects on the decline of the Hutt Syndicate and her own career with it.
The great Jabba the Hutt will now listen to your pleas.
When Luke Skywalker receives his lightsaber and fights to free his friends above the Sarlacc pit, many of Jabba's guards run, fearing the wrath of a single Jedi over that of the once influential, Jabba the Hutt. Those who didn't run met the business end of the lightsaber or felt the fury of a force kick. The time for Jabba's reckoning had arrived, even though Luke had given him every opportunity to avoid it.
Jabba, this is your last chance. Free us or die.
Ultimately, it was the chains that Jabba the Hutt put on others that choked him to death. Leia, the princess, the general, the senator, the fighter, the survivor, the leader, adds Hutt Slayer to her list of accomplishments. When all is said and done, the barge that contains the corpse of the once great and powerful Jabba the Hutt lies smoldering in the sands of Tatooine, forgotten. It's looted by Jawas and left. The explosion on the deck of Jabba's barge violently tossed his major dormo, Bib Fortuna, off the barge. The injured Twi'lek was rescued by a Gamorrean guard, and the musicians Max Rebo and Droopy McCool. He laughed in glee at finally being out from under the Hutt's thumb and plotted to take over what he could of Jabba's criminal empire. He even tried eating some of those patty frogs that Jabba so enjoyed and found that he likes the taste. He proclaims, "Jabba the Hutt is dead, long live Jabba the Hutt." But let's be so for real, Bib Fortuna is no Jabba the Hutt. And his new criminal empire quickly diminishes. Many of the remaining droids from Jabba's palace had to be sold off, and many still, such as droid torturer EV-99, was stolen by passing traders. And at least one of the palace women, Jess, used the opportunity of the events at the Sarlacc pit to steal a speeder bike from the palace and escape. I would be shocked if others didn't do the same. Again, the control that Jabba established over 6 centuries simply could not be matched by Bib Fortuna. Indeed, the up-and-coming Red Key Raiders quickly took over most of Jabba's operations on Tatooine outside of Mos Espa, though their takeover was resisted in the town of Mos Pelgo by a man wearing Boba Fett's armor, Cobb Vanth, who was then named the town's marshal. Mos Espa itself was divided among 3 crime families. Bib Fortuna relied on these uneasy alliances to preserve his title, as well as bribes to Mayor Mok Shaiz of Mos Espa. The leaders of these families were once captains under the Hutt Cartel, but left it in order to serve Bib Fortuna and ultimately really themselves, as they're able to establish more control under his weak leadership than they were under the previously strong leadership of the Hutts. They each tried to overthrow him, but were thwarted by his guile and treachery. And while Fortuna did have some influence off-world, he helped Ziva Bliss take control of the Spice Runners of Kijimi from her mother. It was Ziva herself that reminded Bib that his place in Jabba's palace is not any more secure than her newly found place as the leader of the Spice Runners. Indeed, during Bib's reign, the Pykes fully encroach onto Tatooine, using the Dune Sea to transport trains full of Kessel spice and harass the Tusken Raiders, who once enjoyed the protection of Jabba. The Pykes eventually establish a base of operations in Mos Eisley, something that was certainly not the case when Jabba was in power. Meanwhile, after having lost all of their leadership only just a few months' period of time, the Hutt Cartel was simply focused on consolidating their assets and figuring out what to do next. Part of that consolidating appears to be pulling out their operation from Akiva. Not long after the destruction of the second Death Star, bounty hunter Jaz Imari thinks of Surat Nuat as a local gangster with delusions of grandeur. So it is unlikely he still has the backing of the Hutts if she's able to think of him this way. But even if he does still have the Hutt's backing, it really doesn't matter for long, as once Akiva becomes the first Outer Rim world to join the burgeoning New Republic, Surat flees the world and the rest of his gang is either arrested or killed while resisting arrest. And the New Republic finds out that Surat used his connection with the Hutts to gather several data cubes worth of information about the Empire's dealings with crime syndicates, which the New Republic acquires and is most likely able to use to put major strain on the Hutts' continuing operations across the Outer Rim. Meanwhile, with the Empire severely on the back foot after losing the Death Star, Darth Vader, and the Emperor, the Empire begins tightening ranks around the criminal organizations that they have been dealing with, forcing them to let the Empire use their supply lines and to just take their supplies in general. This likely hurts the crumbling Hutts even further. For centuries, the Hutts had oppressed many worlds in their territory. Their criminal enterprises on Ryloth had led to countless Twi'leks being sold into slavery across dozens of generations. But in the decades after the fall of Jabba and the Galactic Empire, the people of Ryloth are able to assert their independence and their own rule for the first time in a long time.
My dream was for a free Ryloth, for our people to happily live in a world at peace.
With dwindling influence, the remaining Hutts on Nal Hutta fought about the nature of Jabba's will. To figure out the nature of his death, which would impact the will, they went to the wreckage of his sail barge and uncovered footage of Leia strangling Jabba to death. The Hutt heirs are only able to agree on one thing. They blame Princess Leia for their hardships because she killed Jabba, and they place a large bounty on her head, though obviously this never results in them getting revenge on Leia, as she lives well past the time of this bounty being placed. But the Hutt heirs are unable to unify enough to choose a new Hutt council. The infighting is so intense that people are surprised to even see prominent Hutts leave Nal Hutta, even 5 years after the death of Jabba. Back to Bib Fortuna, he's only able to rule in Jabba's palace for 5 years. After Boba Fett reclaims his armor, he returns to Tatooine with his assassin friend, Fennec Shand. They kill the few paltry guards that Bib has, free his one Twi'lek slave woman, then kill him and claim the throne. While Boba Fett is recognized by Mos Espa as the new daimyo of the palace, the station has lost most of its weight in the time since Jabba's death. The mayor of Mos Espa does not come in person to meet Boba Fett, and does not even send his representative with a gift. In fact, the representative implies that Boba Fett should be giving the mayor tribute.
If you had spoken such insolence to Jabba, he'd have fed you to his menagerie.
Indeed, Boba Fett's goal for the season of the Book of Boba Fett is to get the people of Mos Espa to accept his rule, which he knows will purposefully be different than Jabba or Bib Fortuna's. As he remarks,
Jabba ruled with fear. I intend to rule with respect.
Getting people to adapt to that new line of thinking will be difficult because the Hutts had been in control for so long, but if he could go from becoming a bounty hunter, cloned from a bounty hunter, raised by bounty hunters, to becoming a person who cares about his tribe and his people, then he believes that so too can Mos Espa adapt.
I can't abandon Mos Espa. These people are counting on me.
Boba Fett's rule is quickly challenged by the twins, cousins of Jabba, who come to finally reclaim his territory for the Hutts after 5 years of leaderless turmoil on the Hutt homeworld of Nal Hutta. When they cannot intimidate Boba Fett to abandon his claim to Jabba's throne,
I don't care what your tablet says.
They send the Wookiee bounty hunter Black Chrysanthemum to kill him. After Chrysanthemum fails and is captured, the twins come to the palace.
Go on.
They offer Boba Fett a Rancor as an apology and say that they are leaving Tatooine as Mos Espa has already been promised to the Pykes by Mayor Mok Shays of Mos Espa, and they are in no position to go to war. So they return to Nal Hutta.
Quite the gift.
After hearing of the Hutt Twins running in fear from Tatooine at the thought of confronting the Pykes, pirate Hondo Ohnaka reflects that the death of Jabba was truly the final nail in the coffin for the Hutt Cartel. The new movie, Mandalorian and Grogu, gives us our first glimpse of Nal Hutta in live action, and we also get a chance to see how the Hutts are doing on their home world 5 years after the death of Jabba. We see that it's not going very well. The Hutts have hired the criminal gang, the droid Gotra, to serve as protection on their home world. not even their own loyal guards and clans like they've had in the past. Remember Akrev's clan? The leaders were so loyal that even at the time of his demise, most of them were saying, no, we're gonna keep on, keeping on with the Hutts. Now they have to hire outside help in order to keep their home world secure. The twins seek to help fix this problem by consolidating their own power. They seek out Rotta the Hutt, the last surviving heir of Jabba the Hutt, and they plan on eliminating him to get rid of any potential rival to their claim of Jabba the Hutt's throne. And they do this even though Rotta has absolutely no interest in his father's brutal legacy. The twins just simply can't imagine a Hutt not wanting to claim that. So they strike a deal with the New Republic to have their independent agent, the Mandalorian Din Djarin, go and retrieve Rotta the Hutt for them.
I don't work for gangsters anymore, especially the Hutts.
That's right, you don't. You work for us. And right now, this is what we need you to do.
The Mandalorian ends up breaking that agreement when he's able to find the Imperial that the New Republic are after anyway, but the Hutts still manage to get their grips on Rotta the Hutt and capture him. When Grogu manages to free him using the Force, the fight between Rotta and the twins literally causes the floor of the Hutt palace to collapse underneath them. And if that's not a visual metaphor, I don't know what is. The infighting of the Hutts destroys them after Jabba's death. Faced with their very hungry dragon snake, one twin pushes the other closer to the dragon snake's maw so that way they could have a few more seconds of life. Betrayal is just so instinctual and baked into the Hutts, it's honestly pathetic. Once the New Republic learns that the Hutts are still working with the Imperial Remnant, they send a Delphi squadron to rescue the Mandalorian and Grogu, and they destroy the Hutt palace of Nal Hutta, which is the central hub of the Hutt's crime syndicate. So, I mean, really, that's gotta be a devastating blow for the Hutts as a criminal organization. Obviously, we're on the Hutts' home planet. There's still the whole, all the Hutts that live there, but this was the centralized point of power for their criminal operations, and now it has been bombed to oblivion. I think that that's the final blow that they are truly never able to recover from, but as we've been talking this whole time, it's that lack of trust between the Hutts, Jabba and the Hutt Council especially, and then the twins and other Hutts, then the twins and Rotta, and then the twins among themselves, just all of the Hutts on this long-lived criminal empire. Just that lack of trust and able to do something for the overall benefit of the Hutt criminal organization as opposed to all of their selfish desires and need for power. In moments of crisis, which there have been several that the Hutts have faced over the past decade or so, they're just not able to overcome it, and millennia of influence comes to a crushing end. 11 years after the death of Jabba the Hutt, the Master Codebreaker, a friend and ally of Pirate Queen Maz Kanata,
Oh, yes, he can.
finds her smuggler's guide and is able to confirm the first prediction that she put in it, that the Hutts, as a criminal empire, were in decline. According to him, both their and the Pykes' former influence in the underworld has been usurped and replaced by a combination of the Red Key Raiders, who we see on Tatooine taking over some of Jabba's old holdings, and Kanja Club, who we see in The Force Awakens pursuing a debt against Han Solo.
I never made a deal with Kanja Club.
Tell that to Kanja Club.
While different Hutts, of course, continue to individually do business across the galaxy, such as Frankie the Blue running his hotel, casino, and asteroid field racetrack, they hold only a small fraction of the influence that they once did. In fact, that they did for most of their history. 24 years after the death of Jabba and the formation of the New Republic, infighting among the senators leads to the government being ineffective in deterring crime in the Outer Rim, including in regions that were once dominated by the Hutts. Even still, it is not the Hutts that come to take advantage of this situation, but new cartels like the one led by Rin Riven D, who once had been a spice broker for the Hutts 15 years prior. When a bomb on Hosnian Prime destroys the Galactic Senate building of the New Republic, one of Princess Leia's aides, Greer Sonal, considers organized criminals to be among the candidates, whether minions of Rinrodvin D or a desperate attempt by the Hutts to reclaim their former power. As most news outlets blame one political party or the other, again, like I said, there's a lot of infighting in the New Republic Senate, only one news source, the Ithorian News Service, seems convinced that it was the Hutts behind it all. But in fact, the attack was done by agents of the still-in-hiding First Order. The Hutts did not have the motive to do this, nor do I think they had the resources to pull something like this off. Their influence has been reduced to the point where they are posting job offerings for the desperate and unreliable at the notoriously dilapidated Chrome Citadel space station. Greer notes that those with wealth like Rinriven D, wealth that the Hutts used to possess, would not normally send their jobs here. And yet, to this the Hutts have been reduced. In the time period just after the end of The Last Jedi, Gardulla the Hutt, who once owned Shmi Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker as slaves, and was a member of the Hutt Council during the Clone Wars, lives in a small fortress in the Tatooine wastelands. After the death of Jabba, she grew paranoid, hiring a Force-sensitive bodyguard to protect her against Force-using attackers like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker. She obviously did not amount to much after the death of Jabba and the collapse of the Hutt Council. You would think that as a former member she'd be able to rise to some leadership position, yet obviously she doesn't, staying hidden in her fortress on Tatooine, until the arrival of Kylo Ren. Her fortress is bombarded by the First Order in Kylo Ren's quest to destroy relics of the past, specifically Anakin Skywalker's past as a slave.
Let the past die. Kill it. If you have to.
And that is the last point in the timeline that we see anything about any Hutts of influence across the galaxy, and it's just reminders that they have been reduced to a pale shadow of the influence that they once held. Well, thank you so much for watching this lengthy analysis on the decline of the Hutt criminal syndicate. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you want to see any more videos like this, I have some right here. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good week.